Hi everyone, welcome back, or welcome in if this is your first time visiting my channel. My name is Morgan and I would love to have you subscribe today. Today's video I am super excited about. It is going to be a 2 looks, 1 palette with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette. So today I'll be sharing 2 different looks that I created with this palette and sharing some thoughts about how the Sultry stands up now in a makeup market that actually has a lot more cool toned palette options. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so the order of events for this video is going to be, first I'm going to give a little bit of background on the palette as well as the vault that I picked up, which is still available at some retailers. So I'll link those down below the best I can where I can find this vault. Then I will jump into the 2 pre-recorded looks for this palette, including the one that's on my eyes today. And then finally, at the end, I will wrap up with some of my thoughts about the quality of the product, the color story, etc. So let's go ahead and start out with a quick introduction to the palette. So here is what the case looks like on the palette. When you open it up, you do get a nice big mirror there, which I'm going to flip down now. You get a double-ended brush. I will insert a close-up here so that you can see a little bit better what all of these shades look like without the glare from my lights. Right now, you cannot buy the palette on its own. It was limited edition 2018 holiday from Anastasia Beverly Hills. But because it was so popular and so many people missed out on it the first time around, they brought it back this year. But they kind of did it in a sneaky way that I don't love when brands do this, where you had to purchase this whole vault in order to get the palette. So in the top drawer here is where the palette lived, and then in the bottom drawer here, you get some kind of like bonus goodies. It came with an eyeshadow primer, an eyeliner, and a full-size mascara. So not a bad deal if you also want those products. And this case is actually super hefty and well made. But considering the fact that I wasn't in the market for any of those 3 items, I was a little frustrated that that was the only way I could get my hands on this palette. And so I kind of resigned to the fact that I wasn't willing to pay, I think it was originally $65 for the vault in order to get a palette that's only like 40 bucks normally. So I kind of just sucked it up and said, okay, fine, I'm not gonna ever get my hands on that palette, it's okay. But then Morgan Turner, she's here on YouTube, she posted something on her Instagram stories about this going on a 50% off sale on Nordstrom. So I snatched it up super fast and I'm really glad I did because I think it has actually sold out at that price point on Nordstrom and is either back to full price or just completely sold out. But it was a temporary sale and I'm so glad I got it when I did because it ended up being $32, which is actually less than an ABH palette costs on its own. I will link down below anywhere I can find this vault still for sale. I know it was at a few retailers, like I've seen it at least on 3 or 4 different websites. So even if it's sold out at 50% at Nordstrom, I have a feeling that it will be going on sale at other retailers as well, kind of as we get further away from the holiday season. And now we're going to hop into a fast forward close-up of the 2 tutorials I did with this eyeshadow palette. The first look is the one on my eyes today. It's a really, really simple pink look. I wanted to incorporate that shade Bloom. You could have gotten this look in a more neutral toned down vibe by replacing that shade Bloom with any of the kind of mid-tone brown and gray shades in the palette. And then the second look will just come up right after the first look is done, and that is a much more glam, all neutral look. So I only use the neutral browns and grays in this palette for that second look, and I really go all out smoky vibes. So I hope you enjoy these 2 tutorials. Okay, first up here, I'm just taking Bloom on a nice fluffy brush through my crease, just blending to make sure it's really nice and diffused up onto my brow bone. Now in with a second layer of Bloom. I just wanted to build it up to a little bit more intensity than I was getting from that first swipe. Now I'm taking Twig on the outer corner just to add a little bit of depth and dimension, nothing crazy, just on that same brush that I used for Bloom. And then I'm adding the Rose Quartz shade, just that really beautiful peachy pink shade, all over my lid, just in the first kind of half of the lid, and then up into my crease as well. I am taking Pearl here, just on a small brush in the corner of my eye, and then underneath I'm running a combination of Twig and Bloom, just mixed together for some subtle definition. Then I'm trying out Dystopian, that deep, nice matte brown, just for a little extra definition on both the bottom and top lashes on about the outer third or so. So I didn't want to add too much, and I actually decided to go about halfway across here on the upper lash line. Adding mascara, and this is the final look. All right, getting the second look started with Birch all over in the crease here. I'm kind of trying to put it up on the brow bone a little more than in the actual crease, because on this step, I actually go in with the shade Twig, kind of right in the actual crease itself for a little bit more depth there. Then I go in with Slate in the inner corner, and it's a little bit hard to see here, but Slate is that nice gray, and I just wanted a little bit of a cool tone in that shadow of my eye. Now I'm packing on Dystopian into this outer corner. That is the deep matte brown. Just blending that so it's not so harsh. And then I build it up just a little bit more after that as well. Kind of just giving everything a nice blend. I feel like things got a little bit weird there, kind of in the center of the crease, so I just wanted to blend it out. Now on the outer corner, I'm taking the shade Ember, and this is such a unique color. I really liked it, but I wanted to mix it kind of with a different shade in the center, and that is Cinder. And then on the very inner corner, I took the shade Cyborg for that gray to kind of go with that gray that I put on the inner corner. So I'm mixing some cool tones and warm tones here. And just building out that brown again, that Dystopian on the outer lash line. And then I'm going in with the matte black Noir as a soft liner across the whole top lid. Hopping off to do my complexion, and now I'm back with my lower lash line. I went ahead with Dystopian first and then blended that out with Twig with a fluffy brush so it wasn't such a harsh line. And then last but not least, added some of the Noir black on the very outer third of my eye down there. I pop a little bit of Pearl on my inner corner, and then I use a nice liquid black liner on the top just to define right up against my lash line there. Adding some mascara and some false lashes for extra drama. And this is the final look. Okay, and now just wrapping up quickly with my final thoughts on this palette and how it kind of holds up in today's market. My first thoughts are that I haven't found a single dud in this eyeshadow palette. And what I mean by that is every single one of the shadows in here performs wonderfully. They are all beautiful. They're all about the same pigmentation level as each other, which makes it really easy to bounce around the palette and not have to worry or remember kind of which shades perform in which ways. I like that about a palette. I know that some people prefer to have a variety of formulas and textures in a palette, so that might not be appealing to you, but for me, it is nice. It's kind of thoughtless. I just dip my brush in wherever I want, and I know that I'm going to get the same result from all the shadows in the palette. In my experience, the mattes in this palette are all very powdery, which means they can also have quite a bit of fallout. So I would recommend when you're using this palette, at least the first few times trying to get used to the formula and application, that you do your eyeshadow before you do the rest of your complexion. I personally do not mind that formula at all. I think it makes it seamless to blend the shadows out. I think it also makes it really easy to backtrack. If you've applied too much, you can kind of really buff and blend away some of the pigment. It also makes it easy to build layers on top of themselves without going overboard. So I personally actually think that a powdery formula is not a bad thing. I just would caution you that applying your eyeshadow first will probably be the way to go. As far as the shimmers go, I didn't have trouble with a single one. The shimmers all apply beautifully with a finger, and then most of them also apply okay with a brush. I personally prefer to apply all shimmers with a finger regardless, so the fact that a couple of them are a little lackluster with a brush is not really a huge deal to me. But if it is a big deal to you, I will just say that Steampunk up here at the top and Cyborg didn't seem to apply as well with a brush as they did with my finger. And now finally, to wrap things up here, I want to think about the context of ABH re-releasing this in 2020 as a holiday vault. 2020 has really seen a shift from kind of all warm red-based looks into a lot of cooler toned looks as well. And I think that it was strategic of ABH to re-release this palette at a time when there's kind of a lot of hype surrounding cool tones. However, that being said, in 2020, a lot of the cool tone palettes are really leaning extremely cool. What I mean by that is a lot of them are leaning into almost like blue-based grays rather than kind of the more neutral brown-based cool tones that we've seen in the past. And I don't think that that's happening universally across the board. For example, when Natasha Denona released the Glam palette, a lot of the reviews said that it was actually pretty neutral leaning with some kind of cool tone pops. Whereas when ColourPop released like their Baroque 9-pan palette that they released recently, that is very much a blue-based cool tone palette. So I do think that we're getting more variety in the cool tones that are available. And this palette does not strike me as particularly cool toned anymore. That being said, I love this palette because of that. I think it's so versatile. You get the cool, true gray, you get kind of a mid-tone, warm-ish brown, and you get a wide variety of absolutely gorgeous, high-performing shimmer shades. I am so glad I finally got my hands on this palette. I think the quality is wonderful. I think that if you can get it on a sale after this holiday season, it is a steal for the quality of these shadows. However, if you miss out on this palette, the market is full of other options that provide similar color stories nowadays, whereas 2 years ago, this was super unique, and that's why it was so hard to get your hands on. So if you're not able to get this palette, but you're still in the market for kind of those cool tones, I would definitely check out ColourPop. They have released multiple cool tone palettes in 2020, and I'm sure they will continue that trend in 2021. The Nabla Side by Side Nude palette, I do not personally own this, but it looks like it has a similar concept. It has that true gray, true black, but it also has kind of a variety of shimmers and other mattes that make it not just a cool tone palette. And then of course, if you have a little money to splurge on a palette, the Natasha Denona Glam palette has gotten incredible reviews this year. So those are just kind of 3 different price points and different ideas to look at if you do miss this palette and you're still looking for a well-rounded neutral palette. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please consider liking this video, commenting down below, and subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you next time.